iDS Talks is a podcast dedicated to helping corporations and law firms find new and effective ways to leverage data, giving them a decisive advantage both in and out of the courtroom.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of iDS Talks. My name is Jonathan Sachs, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at iDS, and I'm joined by Tim LaTulippe, one of our directors out of the London office. Tim's here today to talk to us about version 8.0 of his D3, Delightfully Digestible Data. It's an email he sends to a select group of people, and in it he covers December and January highlights and a recent blog he wrote, as well as a Q1 look ahead. Tim, welcome to today's podcast.
Jonathan, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
This is very serious. For those longtime listeners, don't be surprised by that. Very serious. All right. That's the way we'll do today. I appreciate it. Let's jump right in.
Yeah.
I was thrilled to get
Sure.
version 8. For those who didn't get the email, by the way, if you'd like to get it, reach out to Tim. He's on LinkedIn, or you can find his email address on our website, but he'd happily add you to the list where I believe no one knows who actually gets it because of the way we send it. So December, it feels like it was a long time ago because January flew by, but let's quickly cover the highlights because you talked about them.
Happy to. Yeah, December was very busy for us. Client engagements were very active. That comes and goes every kind of holiday period. Sometimes it's driven by things being cleared out by corporate clients for the end of the year. Sometimes there are legal proceedings that need immediate attention, even around the festive period and in early January. But we've got some cases on that are very kind of long term and allowed the team to have a little bit of a break in December as well as being busy. It's a nice kind of hybrid of both. We also spent a lot of time visiting with people. We're a people firm. We're people, if I can use that term. So we were in Belgium and France for a good 10 days combined in December. Dan Ruprecht and I were seeing clients in Belgium, Brussels specifically, as usual. And then I was in Paris for a number of days, reconnecting with people we haven't seen in a little while, people that we work with regularly, and just enjoying a bit of the festivities as well around Christmas markets in Europe. They're quite a sight. And quite a thing to be experienced that time of year.
Yeah, I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for my package, by the way, from the gifts from the Christmas market. It must be stuck in customs, but thanks for that. Yeah,
it's got to be it.
Yeah. January highlights. Now, quite a busy one. From what I understand, Dan Ruprecht kicked it off straight away with an event in Brussels.
Yeah, he didn't waste much time, did he? But I think now that January is pretty much wrapping, it did sort of fly by, but it was a very packed month. Client work was very active, but we were also very kind of energized by how engaged the market is Europe-wide. We, on this side of the world, tend to not go to things like Legal Week, formerly Legal Tech, for those listening that are confused. But we tend to focus more on sort of industry subject matter specific events. So things that are related to labor and employment or antitrust or that sort of thing. And Dan had the privilege of being invited to an event co-hosted or really spearheaded by Concurrence, which is a large publication on the continent in the antitrust space. I think they partnered with Herbert Smith. It was quite a showing, and the co-panelists were heads of the regulatory authorities, all in the UK, European Commission. So I think Dan felt pretty humbled sitting on that panel. He, of course, did a really, really great job, and Dominic Tucker on our team was over there with him. But a real good showing for iDS to express and share our knowledge and impart that to the market, but really even just for bragging rights, it's really nice to be invited to that kind of caliber of conversation.
Yeah, that was a big one and a good and a very good one. And like I said, I was surprised at how quickly it came on in the year. So starting off strong. Now, that's an example of an event that we go to, but you and the rest of the London team have a history of doing roundtables, tend to be maybe a breakfast roundtable, but in January, you and along with another one of our colleagues from the US and the team in London had a dinner roundtable, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't really in keeping with the dry January theme that we have in Great Britain. I find that people have fallen off that fad a little bit. But we had quite a showing at a dinner that we held. We tend to hold these things as breakfast, lunch, or dinner. We have very subject matter specific invites to things, and we'll do more of this in January and February, where we pick a topic related to antitrust or employment or litigation, and we get the right people to a breakfast or something and really talk it out. This thing we did on the 23rd of January was quite a bit different because it was about it was about the guests more than our own selfish interests or our
Hmm.
own offerings, if you like. It was about how client development has evolved. And so we all have our own ways of developing clients or building relationships. And most of our buyers and user buyers are senior law firm partners. So they had the opportunity to come by and also bring their rising star associates with them. So people they have worked with for a number of years. And we were able to kind of tease out this conversation of what do you see that's different? What's going to be different in 5 years? Is it the dynamic of the client, the corporate buyer? We teased out a lot of things. Hunter was here from the US, our COO, and he helped kind of drive it from the outset. We had a bunch of, but by the end of the night, we had a bunch of really energetic conversations going. And I'm sure the takeaways from it will be publicized more publicly. None of that's a real secret. The quote attribution will be anonymized if there are any, but we'll probably digest that to the public.
Yeah, I was a little jealous, didn't get to go there for that, and I saw that I think maybe within an hour of the event wrapping, one of the attendees had posted on their LinkedIn page about it,
Yeah.
which was very cool. Uh, you know, some people don't know that I was a practicing attorney. I should just say an attorney. Whenever I say practicing, they say so you never figured it out, but we're going to go with it. Practicing attorney.
Right.
Um, and when you are a more junior associate looking to make it into partnership or shareholder, depending on what the firm calls it, understanding client development is really important. You come some cases straight from law school. No one tells you how to develop business, how to establish yourself as a thought leader, which in turn will drive clients to you. So being able to have conversations like I imagine happened during that dinner, extremely valuable.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing a bit about that. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about your January Leavers blog, because when I saw you tease it out in a LinkedIn post for about 2.5 seconds, I thought, oh my God, Tim is leaving. So I fell for it. Call it clickbait, call it the hook that got set, but I fell for it. And then I got
Yeah.
to read the blog. So maybe you could just spend 2 minutes talking about that blog you wrote.
I'm happy to. And again, we others can be accessing it, through the links shared with this. It's a very short read, just like D3. It's meant to be digestible. If something's quite punchy, we'll call it a white paper. You'll know you're getting into a 15-minute read. We'll flag that to you. But this is really just to kind of impart a bit of wisdom and give a few pointers to people in the legal community around the risk of leaver employees in January. They all go for a number of reasons. People find newer opportunities. They leave their field and go to another. They don't hit performance markers or are promised something they don't receive, or there's some uh, unpleasantness at a Christmas party, or it just there's a whole variety of things that
Yeah.
drive people to make that decision in January, and usually they're fine. But it's where we see a big rise in contentious allegations. Whether there's litigation or claims filed is another question, but there's certainly a lot of suspicions around theft of IP from companies. It's usually the strongest asset of every company, if if they're, especially if they're in the non-tangibles. And even those that work in things like manufacturing, products design, engineering things, those are quite valuable to companies. And if they're going to competitors, that's a huge risk for the incumbent employer. So we sort of talk about that in the blog, how we can attack that very cost effective kind of way, get a sense of what's happening, and also fails to be considered sometimes as a view from the newer employer. They might be blind to all of this in a sense that you know um, they're receiving a person or a team of people, and they've brought them on board, but they're not really aware that this kind of information might be coming across to them. We've seen that be quite impactful in cases before where they're in receipt of um, sensitive pricing materials or things that would create consumer harm or problems with the market around them. So there's a lot of risks on both sides to be considered, and we have a lot of experience in helping assess that risk in a kind of measured, tactical way.
Yeah, I think I'd add one point to that, which is not every employee is bad. Not every departed employee has taken the secret recipe. And so in some cases, it could be just as important to do a quick early risk assessment to determine nothing happened. There is no smoke.
Mhm.
And so, okay, great. But at least you've taken the appropriate security measures to check and ensure that what is so important to your organization actually stayed at the organization. So I enjoyed the blog, and I'm sure we'll hear maybe some follow-on stories as people do, in fact, choose to leave. And again, thankfully you didn't, Tim. So yeah, good job. All right. And real
I'm
quick.
glad the clickbait worked, though.
Yeah, it did. Oh, it at least for one. At least for one. Uh, in terms of the Q1 look ahead, you hit a couple of the highlights. One of them being an upcoming trip to Dublin, not just a trip. I mean, you're going to be at a conference and participating, and it's the International Business Employer, correct?
International employment lawyer, and
Ah,
they are a lovely, lovely group. They've been at it for a few years now. They might have they might have properly kicked off kind of during like the emergence of COVID, or maybe it was before and they had a hiatus, like a lot of people. But they've done such a good job with it. We attend a lot of events historically, and 10% of them are probably worth it. And it's a combination of things. It's location, it's people they invite to speak, it's people they curate to attend, it's the length of the talk sessions, it's like where the breaks are, how is there a decent barista there to make coffee, that kind of stuff really matters. But they hit all the boxes. So I don't work for them. There's no financial reward for this, but I just
no,
I
there
just
is
think
not.
it's a well-run event, which is why we continue to participate, sponsor, be involved. But this time around, it's not in London. It's in another one of my favorite European cities, which is Dublin, and they're hosting it at Croke Park, which is
Oh,
quite a
yeah.
cool place. It has a very very storied history for a lot of reasons, but they have quite a lot of events there nowadays, and we're looking forward to being over there. Dominic, Tucker, and I will be in Dublin 6 and 7 March, pretty much in the Croke Park area. But I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't find us listening to music at 1 in the morning, one of those nights, somewhere in the city. But it's an event that's largely attended by uh, seasoned and high caliber employment lawyers, as well as their in-house contacts, usually C-suite level HR folks, sometimes GCs from companies. But it really focuses right in on the heart of what we were just discussing a few minutes ago. They have roundtables around how do you protect your trade secrets in your IP, very relevant to what we do and what we're interested in. Last autumn, they had a topic around the confluence between competition law and labor law, which is super
Oh, interesting.
interesting to me. Dan Ruprecht
Yeah.
is hugely involved in competition law, and it was around poaching agreements and non-poaching agreements and how that's detrimental to the market. It makes one company more powerful than the other. And the competition authorities are actually really paying attention to this stuff in Europe. So it's stuff that I hadn't really considered or paid attention to before. So really interesting stuff like that. And we look forward to being there. And I'm sure you'll see lots of silly and beautified photos on the internet about it.
We cannot wait. So clearly Q1 we're going to have some of that continued travel, conference attendance. Having a scheduled roundtable in Q1.
Yeah, we're working on that actually. It's not gone on the diary just yet, but we always have an iDS led roundtable in every quarter. They're, again, I mentioned it earlier quickly, but they're very topical. They're for a specific group of people. It's generally not a catch-all, let's invite everybody we can think of. This is going to be about regulatory issues and how to use data to deal with that. So we're talking to white collar regulatory lawyers in that sense, or something that's just for the in-house community.
Right.
And that way we probably won't invite external lawyers, so they're more candid and comfortable. We're pretty careful at how we curate these things. It's not a scatter shotgun approach.
No, it is it's a curated list with created with intentionality is what I would say. And then, of course, I know that you and the team will have a number of in-firm presentations. But there was one other thing you mentioned in your Q1 look ahead that I thought the listeners might be interested in hearing a little bit more about, even though it's internal to IDS, which is IDSU.
Yeah, and we had a catch up with our head of talent and HR at IDSU the other day on this, but she really drives the train on that one. And it's iDS University, which is I've gone to university a few times over, and I'll never stop. So wherever I can get some uni is good for me. And if it's right here at IDS, that's great too. And when we were joining, a few of us, it was quite an interesting, attractive thing. I'm sure you found the same, Jonathan, but it's a week-long thing with some courses built in. It's not all day every day. They're in blocks, but everyone kind of switches off their buzzing phones and things and pays attention to our colleagues. We invite in external speakers to cover certain aspects of it. Depends. I don't know who it is this year. I actually like not knowing. It's fun when it's a bit of a surprise.
Agreed. Yeah.
We've had some pretty cool people. And we do one as a group for the whole company. It's a spotlight on the UK and the rest of Europe. I won't spoil it here, but we've got some cool things planned for that. But it's a really good week to learn about what everyone's doing, what we could be doing better. It just broadens people's minds a little bit. It's not razor focused. I know Jonathan, you and I belong to the same revenue and sales organization, so we have a kind of strategy meeting around that sort of thing, which is very targeted and quite precise that way. But this is more about everyone learning about everyone's goings on, and I really like it. What about you, Jonathan? I mean, I think it's a cool thing that we do.
I think it's great. It was very unique. It is very unique, I think, to IDS. Personal and professional development is really important to our founder and CEO, Dan Regard. It is, I think you captured it well, right? It's hearing from different parts of the company that we don't necessarily hear from. It's learning what's going on. It's sharing with one another. And there's always an element of something not business focused. It's more about us as people and as teammates. So I don't know if you were with us when we had a former Navy SEAL come in and talk about extreme ownership. We've had Molly Bloom come in after she had her
she
movie.
Was cool.
Yeah. So we've had some other interesting individuals come in. And then there was one where they don't have this incredible story about Navy missions or running poker rooms, but understand how your body reacts to certain stressors, so that if you're having a conversation and your body is telling you now is not a good time to have the conversation, take a step back, have the conversation clearly, just wait. So that one was interesting, to say the least. So looking forward to that. You know what else I'm looking forward to, Tim?
What's that?
Version 9.0 of D3, because it means you and I will have another chance to have a podcast conversation like this. So with that, I want to thank you, Tim, for joining me today. I'd also like to thank our regular subscribers and those that may be first-time listeners for spending time with us. If you'd like to learn more about IDS, or you want to subscribe to our IDS Talks podcast, you can visit idsinc.com or go wherever you normally get your podcasts from. Thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to talking about data with you on our next edition of IDS Talks. Have a good one there, Tim.
Thank you, Jonathan. And you.